She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She looked me over, slowly, deliberately, like she was measuring something I couldn't see, and then she said, "You don't leave until I say you can." Something in the room shifted when she spoke. Maybe it was the silence that followed. Maybe it was the way my chest tightened, like the air had grown heavier. Or maybe it was the way her eyes held mine, steady, unblinking, almost calm in a way that made me uneasy. I should have laughed it off. I should have said something clever, something dismissive. But I didn't, because deep down, I knew she wasn't joking. And that terrified me. Her name was Sarah. I met her on a rainy Thursday evening, the kind of night where the city feels smaller than it really is. I had ducked into a quiet cafe to escape the downpour, shaking water from my jacket and hoping to warm up before heading back out into the storm. She was already there, sitting by the window, alone. There was nothing particularly unusual about her at first glance. Mid-20s, simple black sweater, dark hair tied loosely behind her head. But there was something in the way she carried herself, a stillness, like she wasn't just sitting there, but waiting. Not for someone, for something. I ordered coffee, turned, and found her watching me. Not in a casual, passing way. In a way that made me feel seen. I looked away quickly, pretending to scroll through my phone, but I could still feel it. That gaze. It lingered like a question I didn't know how to answer. After a few minutes, I gathered my things and moved toward the empty seat across from her. "I hope you don't mind," I said, gesturing to the chair. She didn't respond immediately. She studied me first. Then she nodded once. "Sit." That was the beginning. We talked. Or rather, I talked. She listened. At first, it felt normal, like meeting a stranger and exchanging surface-level details. Names, jobs, small talk about the weather. But as the conversation went on, something shifted. She asked questions. Not the usual kind. Not, "What do you do?" Or, "Where are you from?" She asked things like, "When was the last time you were truly honest with someone?" Or, "What are you pretending not to care about right now?" I laughed at first, brushing it off. That's a bit intense for a first conversation, don't you think? She didn't laugh. She just tilted her head slightly and said, "You didn't answer." I don't know why, but I did. I told her things I hadn't said out loud in years. About the job I hated but couldn't leave. About the relationships I sabotaged before they could get serious. About the constant, quiet feeling that I was stuck. She didn't interrupt, didn't judge, she just listened. And when I finished, she leaned back slightly, crossed her arms, and gave me that look. That same look, the one that made my chest tighten. "You're good at running," she said. I frowned. "Excuse me, running," she repeated. "From decisions, from responsibility, from yourself." I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because she wasn't wrong. That's when I stood up. "I think I should go," I said quickly, grabbing my jacket. And that's when she said it. "You don't leave until I say you can." At first, I thought it was a joke. "Yeah, okay," I said with an awkward chuckle, stepping toward the door. But my feet slowed, then stopped. I turned back. She hadn't moved, still sitting there, still watching me. There was no anger in her face. No threat, just certainty. And somehow, that was worse. "I don't understand," I said. "You do," she replied calmly. I shook my head. "No, I don't. I just met you." "Exactly," she said. "And yet you told me more truth in 20 minutes than you've told anyone in years." I swallowed. "That doesn't give you control over me." She stood up then, slowly, and walked toward me. Not aggressively, not hurried, just intentionally. When she stopped in front of me, she was close enough that I could see the faint scar near her eyebrow. Close enough to notice that her eyes weren't cold, they were tired. Like someone who had seen too much. "I'm not controlling you," she said softly. "Then what is this?" She held my gaze. "This is the moment you decide whether you keep running, or finally stay and face something." The cafe had gone quiet around us. Or maybe I just stopped hearing everything else. Because suddenly, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. About every time I walked away when things got difficult. Every time I chose comfort over truth. Every time I told myself, later, instead of, now. I looked at the door. Then back at her. And for the first time, I hesitated. "I don't even know you," I said quietly. She nodded. "You're right. Then why do you care?" That question seemed to catch her off guard. For a brief moment, something cracked in her expression. She looked away, then back. Because someone once did this for me, she said. I frowned. Did what? Stopped me, she replied. When I was about to walk away from everything that mattered. Her voice softened. I hated her for it. What happened? She didn't let me leave, Sarah said. Not until I faced what I was avoiding. And, she gave a small, almost sad smile. It saved my life. We sat back down, not because she forced me to, but because I chose to. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, streaking the windows with thin, uneven lines. The cafe lights felt warmer now, softer somehow. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Okay, I said, let's say I stay. Then what? She rested her hands on the table. Then you stop pretending. I let out a quiet laugh. That's not very specific. It doesn't need to be, she said. You already know what you're avoiding. And again, she was right. I stared at my hands. I got an email this morning, I admitted. She didn't interrupt. A job offer. Different city. Better pay. Something I actually want to do. That sounds like a good thing, she said. It is, I replied quickly. But it means change, she finished. I nodded. And you're afraid. I looked up at her. Of failing, I said. Of starting over. Of leaving everything familiar behind. She leaned forward slightly. And what happens if you don't go? I hesitated. I stay, I said. And I swallowed. I stay, exactly where I am. Silence settled between us again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was honest. Sarah watched me, not with pressure, but with patience. Like she knew the answer would come. Eventually. I've been telling myself I need more time, I said. She raised an eyebrow slightly. Time for what? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because I didn't have an answer. I don't know, I admitted. She nodded slowly. Sometimes, more time, is just another way of saying, I'm scared to choose. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Yeah, I said quietly. That sounds about right. We talked for what felt like hours. About fear, about regret, about the strange ways we convince ourselves to stay stuck. She didn't give me advice. She didn't tell me what to do. She just held up a mirror and made me look, really look, at the choices I was avoiding, at the life I was drifting through, at the person I was becoming by doing nothing. And somewhere in that conversation, something shifted, not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to make me realize that leaving that cafe without making a decision would just be another version of running. The rain had stopped completely by the time I stood up again. The world outside looked different, cleaner, sharper, or maybe that was just me. I turned to Sarah. So, I said, can I leave now? She smiled slightly. Are you still running? I thought about it, really thought about it, then I shook my head. No, I said, I don't think I am. She studied me for a moment, like she was weighing the truth of that. Then she nodded. Okay, she said softly. You can go. I stepped outside into the cool night air. The city felt alive again. Cars passing, distant voices, the faint hum of something always moving. I pulled out my phone, opened the email, read it one more time, and then, I replied. Yes. I never saw Sarah again. I went back to that cafe a few times, hoping maybe she'd be there. She wasn't. It was like she had appeared exactly when I needed her, and disappeared just as quietly. Sometimes I wonder if she was real. But then I remember the way she looked at me. The way she saw through everything I tried to hide. And I know she was. A year later, I stood in a new city. New job, new life. Not perfect, not easy, but real. There were moments I wanted to quit. Moments I doubted myself. Moments I missed the comfort of the life I left behind. But I didn't run, not anymore. Because every time I felt that urge, I heard her voice, calm, certain. You don't leave until I say you can. And now, I understand. She wasn't talking about that cafe. She was talking about life. About the moments that matter. The ones we try to escape because they're hard, or uncertain, or terrifying. The ones that shape us, change us, define us. We don't get to walk away from those moments, not without losing something important. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stay. Stay when it's uncomfortable. Stay when it's uncertain. Stay long enough to face the truth. Because on the other side of that fear is the life you've been avoiding. And maybe, just maybe, the person you were meant to become.